This is our first robust month-long celebration of Women's History Month. We have over 30 films, feature films and short films, returning favorites, brand new films, and 6 events featuring local and national luminaries, women that are leading the charge in activism, business, empowerment, arts, and culture. Viewers can access the Women's History Month programming through our app, which is available on a number of different platforms that you can watch on your TV, on your computer, on your tablet. What this is a celebration of women in all of their diversity, looking at their successes, their victories, but also focusing on the work that still needs to be done, the challenges that are facing women today.
Good evening, all. I want to thank you for being here with us this evening. My name is Maureen Post. I am the Director of Strategic Partnerships for Milwaukee Film, and welcome to our final week of Milwaukee Film's 2021 Women's History Month programming, presented by Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin. For the month of March, we have dedicated all of our new programming to films and events that amplify female voices and illuminate women's experiences. And so in this last week, we turn our focus to women in leadership. And tonight we have an incredible group of community leaders who have not only overcome barriers, but who are continuing to pave the way for women in decision-making positions. I'm very excited for this conversation. On that note, I'd like to recognize today's sponsors, CUNA Mutual and Madison 365. Also note that this is our final week, so if you haven't had a chance to check out films, you still have some time. I'd like to really highlight 2 films, 93 Queen and End of the Line, The Women of Standing Rock, that were really only available. They are new films and they were really only available for this week only. So hopefully you get to watch them before the end of the month. I also hope you really join us on Thursday. We have our closing event, which will be an incredible conversation with screenwriter, author, and hip-hop matriarch Sophia Chang. You can find all the details at Milwaukee Film, but you can also just join us back at wherever you're watching from right now, Milwaukee Film, Facebook, Black Lens Facebook, or YouTube. And so then on to today's event. I'd like to introduce you to our moderator for the evening, Denise Thomas, President and owner of the Effective Communication Coach, a consultancy focused on transforming emerging and existing professionals into extraordinary leaders by mastering the art of effective communication. She has 19 years of experience with Fortune 500 companies and has honed the ability to deliver and receive messages across language, cultural, and communication style barriers. She has been recognized for excellence in leadership and continues her focus on empowering people by traveling and teaching effective communication to professionals worldwide. Denise, very grateful to have you, and I will leave it to you to introduce the rest of the panel.
Thank you so much, Maureen. I am so excited to be here. And thank everyone in our audience, wherever you're watching us from, however you're watching, thank you so much for making the time to be here. Now, our theme for this evening is turning our mics up as it relates to Women's History Month. So we have a distinguished panel of incredible women who are changing the game, that are getting things done, that are moving the needle. And quite frankly, we want to know, how are they doing it, especially during one of the most controversial times ever that we have experienced. So with that, I want to kick it off with introducing our amazing panelists. Our first panelist that I want to introduce is Isioma Wabuzer, and she is the Vice President, yes y'all, Vice President and Associate General Counsel at Baird, and she is also the founder of The Dreamer Next Door. Isioma, we are so happy to have you here. Thank you. Our next distinguished panelist, also major boss, you have her right here, also part of the organization that is sponsoring this evening's panelist discussion, is Tanya Atkinson, who is President and CEO of Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin. Thank you so much, Tanya, for being here. We are just getting started with the bosses. We've got some more to introduce. Our next distinguished panelist is Maisie Herr, and she is the executive director of the Hmong, Wisconsin Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much, Maisie, for being here. And last but most certainly not least, another one of Milwaukee's finest executives is in the building, Samantha Maldonado from Kohl's Corporation, also Pinpoint Solutions. We've got the dream team here, y'all. Now listen, if you are watching, I want you to take a few seconds, just a few seconds, to text your friends, your family members, anyone who needs to be in this room. Because when I tell you that we are about to have a candid, frank, transparent conversation regarding how these incredible women are so incredible, tell them to come in now. So let's get started. All right, now I'm just going to make this an open question. So for whoever wants to jump in, because I know that for many of us that are watching this, we want to understand how each of you, as leaders, not only in the state of Wisconsin, but in your households in general, what is it about you that has allowed you to manage and still be a boss during this thing called COVID-19? What's the secret? Tell us what you've been doing to still be great and thrive during a global pandemic.
Well, I will go in and hop in first, if that's okay, Denise.
Absolutely.
More than anything, I will say first and foremost that I'm a woman led by faith. And so that is what sustains me through anything pandemic, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic. And so that is what provides my sustenance. That's what gives me reassurance that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. That is what lets me know that we will all be okay. And then I think in this time and in this period, it's caused me to reevaluate and be very intentional about how I move so that I'm not running myself thin, so that I'm focusing myself on areas that are most important and that give me the most return on investment, so that I'm not only pouring it into it, but I get out of it as well and I feel fulfilled. And so between my faith and my intentionality, the pandemic has been okay. It's been manageable.
So here's the thing. She's general counsel, y'all. She's general counsel. So she already knows that walking by faith and being intentional, intentionality, we should hashtag that. Walk by faith and intentionality. I love it. Thank you for that, Isioma. Let me go ahead and go to Tanya. So as a subset of that question, Tanya, how have you amplified your voice over the past year with all of the COVID-19 noise that has been consuming our eyes and our ears?
Yeah, thank you for that question. With Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin being open through the entire pandemic and providing care to people across the state who needed us, we had a lot of people turning to us and asking a lot of questions and wanting to make sure that they had all the information, knowing that we were there for them. We were pivoting all of our work on a dime, telehealth, all of those things that we brought up in short order. And so for us, what we wanted to amplify the most, what I wanted to amplify the most, is that we were here for people who needed us, and also wanted to amplify for our team that the organization was here for them, because this was a really, really rough time. It continues to be a rough time, as you all know, and as everybody in healthcare knows.
Tanya, thank you for that. And I really want to underscore what you said, because oftentimes we get so caught up in the technicalities and the key words that you shared with us. And many of us, I'm going to challenge ourselves. How have we supported others? How have we supported others? So thank you for reminding us the importance of reaching out and supporting others. And speaking of which, someone who is always thinking and supporting of others, Samantha, want to ask you the same question. How have you amplified your voice over the past year with all of the COVID-19 noise that's consumed our ears and our eyes?
Yeah, thank you for that. It's hard, right? Because you get bombarded by so much every single day, that own self noise that you're trying to deal with on top of all the other layers that are out there. And I think it's finding ways to self-reflect, right? Similar to Sioma, it's having intentionality and how do I want to show up today? And being honest with yourself. Am I red, green, yellow, blue? Like, how am I feeling, right? And being honest with it. And I think too, it's being able to communicate that with others to say, hey, this is how I'm showing up, but this is how I need you to show up, and being able to fill your cup by filling others, as well as reading books and having those book groups and having your friends hold you accountable and calling you to the table sometimes when you need it, right? But it's being open to receiving that feedback. And again, very much so, you get so much more when you give. And so it's finding ways of how can I inspire others through my own lived experience, or how can I learn from sharing my experience or what I've learned. So it's really pay it forward all the time while still being honest and true to who you are, and have those trustworthy people that are your kind of insulated board of directors, right? That keeps you honest and grounded, that you know they will call you to the table when you need it, if you're overthinking or if you need to reframe something. But I think truly it's being honest, it's being humble, having some vulnerability, and reflecting and continuing to do better than every day going forward.
I love that. I especially love how you stated, and y'all, this is a hashtag, and this is free for y'all. Y'all, this is $3 advice. I love how you said, Samantha, being open to receive. And especially, I just want to underscore that for women in general, we are constantly giving, nurturing, taking care of, providing, and we tend to not do that for ourselves. So the reality that you've shared with us, being open to receive, love, love, love that. Thank you, Sam. Oh, I'm sorry, Samantha. She's a friend of mine, so I almost forgot.
You know this.
Professional.
All good.
Thank you, Samantha. All right, Maisie. Thank you so much again for being here. I want to ask the same question, but I want to modify the question, because the reality is that over the past week, we as a society all across the world have our attention has been amplified regarding the horrific events of hatred taking place in the Asian American community. And we all know that everyone in this room, and hopefully everyone that is participating, is anti-hate, anti-racism of any capacity, any degree. How have you, in your role as the executive director of the Hmong Chamber of Commerce of Wisconsin, how have you and how do you want to encourage others to amplify their voice regarding these incidents that are happening in the Asian American community?
It's a great question. I was thinking about the question you asked last, but I think this one, it still applies. I think, the work that we do right now, in fact, I was just talking to my staff today, and in relation to everything that's happening right now with the, anti-Asian violence and hate that's happening out in the world, the increasing numbers of those incidences over this past year, and then the work that we do every day at the chamber, helping, small businesses with the most underserved communities. The root of it all is the same. The reason why we exist, right, is that, there needs to be better understanding of all peoples, and that everybody should have their fair share of what society has to offer, of what the world has to offer. So at the end of the day, that's what keeps me focused on, when it comes to the work that I do. And I still leave the doors open, at least in my office, to say, if anyone feels the weight of what's happening around us, that we keep our doors open, we keep our our minds open to what others might be experiencing, and let's talk about that. It's a part of the work that we do. We can't separate how we're feeling, what we're going through, from the work that we do every day. And I'm not sure if that really answers the question that you asked me, Denise, but at least for me, it's inseparable. It's all connected, and it's a part of what makes us who we are. So I think there's a lot of ways we can answer that, but that's the first thing that comes to mind when I think about the question you just asked.
Maisie, you answered, not only did you answer that question, but you answered it in such a way that I want to underscore, because I'm very big on, as a moderator, highlighting key points. And what I appreciate about what you shared with us as a leader is that everyone should have access to everything that is great in this country. Everyone. And what you just described is the definition of equity. You know, equality is saying, hey, here's access, now go get it. Equity is when you meet people where they are and you're understanding that it's not a one size fits all. So I'm so appreciative that you and your team under your leadership are demonstrating equity. And in addition to what you shared, I also hope that people are taking what you shared as an example of making sure that people that need to be heard, their voices are heard. Because listening is an action. Listening to understand is an action. So you absolutely answer the question, and thank you so much for providing that powerful insight. Now I want to ask this question, and we'll start with Isioma. The reality right now, and we talk about turning our mics up and amplifying our stories. There are a lot of women in this session right now that have experienced a number of barriers, a number of challenges in the workplace. So Isioma, I want to start with you. Women are taking sabbaticals. They're leaving their jobs. They're leaving their employment. They're burnt completely out. They're suffering from mental health, depression, psychological well-being. I mean, the list goes on, and this is not something to disregard or discount. So from your experience, especially as it relates to mental and physical well-being, what advice can you provide both women and employers in terms of responding to this increase of women leaving work due to the pandemic?
So it's so cliche, but I think the age-old idiom still stands true that you cannot pour from empty cups. And I think that it is very important in this season that the advice I would give to women is the same advice I would give to employers. Give yourself grace and give your employees grace. You are not the only one feeling like this. And I know it's something that's easier said than done, but I find that as women, we are often putting more pressure and stress on ourselves than any other person or factor is. And so give yourself grace. This is particular, again, for women of color because health disparities are exacerbated with us. So it is okay to take a mental health day. It is okay to stay in the bed all weekend. It is okay to power off the iPad, the iPod, whatever, the cell phone, and give yourself that time you need. And then another piece of advice that I would give specific to employers is that as a manager and someone in a managerial capacity, you have to have a very keen level of discernment in this season because you don't get the visual or physical cues that you would normally have the luxury of having when we would observe in the workplace. And so you, again, intentionality, right? That hashtag. You have to keep in touch with your employees. You need to talk to them. You need to ask them because they're not coming into the workplace and you can see they're stressed out or they're burdened or they're tired and having those conversations. And so it really calls on us in this time for people leaders to step up to the plate and hone in on that responsibility of being intentional with our employees.
Love it. Intentional. That is the key word. Be intentional and definitely provide some grace. Tanya, your thoughts?
Yeah, I thank you for that answer. That was wonderful, and I think along the same lines, it's really important for people to love themselves, and I know that can be really, really difficult right now. And as a queer woman of size, I get the days that it's hard to love yourself, and if you can't be there that day for yourself and that's real, then surround yourself by people who love you because you're a woman and there's people around you who love you and trust them, that they do love you. And I was, sometimes the things that we think of as like self-care often are really laden with privilege. And I grew up on a dairy farm and, we didn't have vacations. We didn't have yoga. And I was thinking about this as we were thinking about all the self-care stuff, and I was taking an online class the other day because I was trying to live my best life, and the instructor said something about soul care, and I thought that's what it is soul care, because even on the farm, we couldn't do all, some of those things, and my mom was working 2 and 3 jobs to have health insurance just so we could have health care. But what we did have is we had time with people that we loved. We had our grandparents and our parents and our aunts and our uncles and our cousins, and we would like cook and eat and make fun of each other. And when the instructor said soul care, I thought, you know what, that's it, like that's soul care. And I really, I would encourage folks to do that. And as employers, I don't want to repeat anything that's been said. I would add, like, do things for your team that you can do that are tangible. So one example is we've added a therapist on retainer who can do support groups for teams and groups if they would need a support group. So that's just one example, because we're not in the same space. It is hard to see, what people are thinking and feeling and doing. But having something tangible that's there for people is something that I think that we really all should be looking at as employers.
Tanya, thank you for that. I don't think I've ever heard soul care in my 44 years on this earth. I love that.
And I can't take credit, and I can't remember the instructor's name, otherwise I would credit them, but I can't take credit myself.
That's okay, Tanya. We're going to Google it. We're going to find out where soul care came from. But that is awesome. I love that. And I also want to underscore your point about surrounding yourself, because to your point, self-love is not always as easy as it is portrayed to be. It definitely takes work in surrounding yourself. And I just want to share with people, even if you are living by yourself, you can surround yourself with people that you love, like my Justin Timberlake bobblehead. See, even though I live by myself, I'm surrounded by my man 24 hours, 7 days a week. So thank you for reminding us, Tanya, about the importance of surrounding yourself. Now, yes, we've got some comments in the chat box. Joanne Robbins says, Tanya makes Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin proud. I love it. Continue to send us your thoughts and your perspectives in the chat box. Samantha, what are your thoughts?
I would say similar to, the soul care and the self-love and the intentionality. It's really being honest with yourself, how you're choosing to show up that day, right? And insulating yourself with people that you love and that love you, and trying on a daily basis to quiet that inner voice that's always bumping up against, you may know better, but there could be a disconnect between the head and the heart, right? And so it's engaging the people around you that can keep you honest and kind of reaffirm you and fill your cup when you need it, when it's feeling a little low that day. And so again, it's the trust, it's the reaffirmations, it's the vulnerability, being honest with yourself that you're not always going to have to be 100% on all the time. You're going to have some of those down days, and it's normal. And so if you're trying always to be perfect and not strive for progress, you got it backwards. Just try and keep moving forward as much as you can. And then this arbitrary goals of what we have, granted, keep striving to achieve, but these timelines and goals of what we're supposed to do, who made those up? We did, right? And so it's give yourself, to your point, Isioma, I say it all the time, give yourself some space and some grace, right? If today was a down day, journal it out or try again tomorrow, right? And so I think it's take the time, hold your loved ones, get those cuddles in where you can, pet Justin as much as you can. And I love the photos behind you. I can see them, Denise, of the concert. I know, right? You can Vanna for a minute. But two, it's taking those times, like read a book, right? Just have, when everything's quiet in the house, just kind of refuel however it suits best for you, and take the day by day.
I love it. Take literally. And that's one thing that I've adopted, Sam, is taking it day by day. It used to be you plan things out 3, 4, 5 months in advance. And COVID has definitely taught me how to live in the moment and take it day by day. So I love that you said that. Thank you so much. Now, ladies, I want to get a little bit more serious. And so I'm going to ask that as leaders, one of the things I love about effective leadership is vulnerability and transparency. So I want to ask some questions. I'm going to start with Maisie. As we talked about a number of women in the workplace that have been taking sabbaticals and really struggling with mental and physical health. If you would be so kind to share and this doesn't have to be COVID related, but if you could share or describe a significant barrier that you overcame, or even that you are navigating through now, that you as a woman has specifically as a woman faced in the workplace, what are you doing to manage or remove that barrier, or what did you do to have that barrier removed? And I'm going to start with you, Maisie.
Thank you, Denise, for that question. You know, I feel as though I would have answered almost any of these questions the same way. Now, as you're asking that question, the prior question, and now this question, is just trusting who I am, where I came from, the experience I have, and just being who just realizing that, I can't be someone else. I can't be my male counterpart. I can only be who I am. I'm going to lead in the way that I'm going to lead. And, that being my authentic self. And if it means that it seems I feel there are times when I don't do it perfectly, when there are times when I'm apologizing more than I should, that's a learning experience for me. And I'm not a perfect person, but I'm going to keep learning. It's self-reflection. I remember Samantha saying that earlier, and that's okay. None of us are perfect, and we are who we are, and that's, we're the leaders that we are. And so let me just also say, with that significant barrier, one of the things that I thought I would try to, from my younger professional days, just trying to be more articulate, writing things down. I still do that, by the way. I think that's just good practice, at least for someone like myself who's bilingual, and sometimes I feel as though things don't quite come out the way that I want to. But I have to admit, some of that came from sometimes saying what I think I meant, and then others, telling me, I don't understand. What are you trying to say? Or they try to rephrase something that I'm saying. And then I finally realized, that had less to do with me than it did about them. Because I knew that I was speaking English. I knew that I was clear, for example, and those things were still happening. So those are just some of the barriers I've had to overcome, but I've realized, I am who I am, and and at the end of the day, that's all I can do.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you for being transparent, because we all need to know, especially when we see women like you, women of color, women who are part of communities that have not traditionally been embraced, and to see each of you in positions of highly visible impact and acumen, it's very beneficial to understand the barriers that you have overcome, or even actually managing now, and yet still looking as beautiful as you look and shining as bright as you shine. So thank you so much, Maisie, for that. Isioma, same question. I mean, you blinging. You're not only a boss by title and name, but you demonstrating your bossness. Please share with us, what are some significant barriers that you have overcome, or that are even navigating today in the workplace, being in such a highly visible and business critical role?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I would be remiss if I didn't address this from the position of a Black woman. And I think there's unique barriers to the intersection of race and sex that are, quite frankly, disheartening and cause a lot of fatigue for Black women and women of color in the workplace. And I think, very simply put, the lack of representation. Representation is abysmal for women who look like me. And there's this constant fight to make sure that our organizations look more and more diverse. And it seems like more often than not, women of color are juxtaposed with every other demographic, men of color, white women. And so it's hard, and it becomes our plight, ensuring that not only are we able to elevate ourselves, but that we lift as we climb. And so that has been a significant barrier. And it's something that I'm consistently and continuously working to overcome. And then I would say another that is a bit more personal is ensuring that I'm a thermostat and not a thermometer. I think in this time more than ever, we have to bring our full selves. And I'm what I like to consider intersectionality personified. I'm a millennial, I'm an immigrant, I'm Black, I'm a woman. And so just standing in that and being confident in that and understanding that in every capacity I'm in, I should bring all of that to the table. And that's the only way I'm going to benefit myself and those around me and those that look and live like me. And so just ensuring every single time that I'm the thermostat.
Woo! I don't even know if I have time to repeat all these nuggets you just dropped on us, Isioma. Lift as we climb. Are you a thermostat or a thermometer? I'm going to ask myself that before I go to bed tonight. Am I operating as a thermostat or a thermometer? And she said, I am Black, I am a woman, I am an immigrant, and she is also, y'all, a lawyer. Yes, I love it. Women's History Month in the making. Woo, I almost lost track of the order that I'm going in. Tanya, your thoughts and perspectives.
I have to follow that. So I think, first of all, it's really important for me to acknowledge the privilege also. While I am a woman, while I'm a queer woman, I do, also walk in a place of privilege in different circumstances. And I think that's important to say. And so, believe it or not, even in the field of social work, there's a lot of, disproportionate men in charge and trying to decide, what they think you should be good at or what your career should be, coming up in the field. I do have to say that, very similar to my C, I think that really stepping into my leadership, really recognizing that, I get all the messages, and to really recognize that all of those things that I get messages about, or I've gotten message about throughout my entire life, really are strengths when you flip them on their head, as cliche as that is. And so really getting to that place of understanding, like, that's not a deficit, that's a positive. And I'm sure a lot of us can relate to this. We have 100 people around us saying, that's great. And we have one person saying that's not great. And that's what gets in your head. And getting to the place, and I'm not always good at this all the time, but much more getting to the place of listening to those 100 people, trusting those 100 people, and really putting myself out there in an authentic way, even when I know people might not like what they're about to hear, or even when it may shock people, or even when it may be too honest, or it may be too vulnerable, or maybe I'm having too much emotion in the moment. And I think, honestly, that's just happened for me in the last couple of years, if I were to be, really honest with myself.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. That's real. That's real. And when you bring that up, Tanya, it provokes me to ask this question, and I really want this to be another transparent moment, because here's the reality. On one hand, in the business world, women are taking off work. They're taking sabbaticals. They're managing their physical, mental, and just psychological well-being. On the other hand, we're seeing images of women being inaugurated into the vice president of the United States role. We're seeing women being announced as CEOs of Fortune 100 companies. So with those opposite spectrums, but yet very, very relevant and important to address, what do we need to do between now and the next 5 years to make sure that there are less women that are struggling with their identity, struggling with their ethnicity, struggling with being a woman, to having more women being announced as the next CEO? I'm tired, y'all. I'm tired of hearing in 2021, she's the first woman, or she's the first woman of color. That is ridiculous. So can y'all share with us in the audience, what do we need to do between now and the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years to bridge that gap? And I'll start the question with you, Samantha.
Of course. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's the question, isn't it? Right? It's like, how do we get out of our own way and really bring people to the table that haven't had that chance to have a voice yet, right? So if you, similar to what Isioma said, lift as you climb. If you don't have the representation at the table, bring someone with you, right? Give them the opportunity for exposure to build their image and their performance and to share their perspective, right? So if you are privileged to have a seat, bring a chair, bring somebody else with you that can have that opportunity to either build their opportunity. And I would say, again, meeting people where they are at, and we need to have everyone involved, right? If in the space of diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's not the token person who's of the diverse nature to bring everyone with, right? It's everyone's game. It's everyone's responsibility to have a seat at that table and to raise everyone up together. Just as in feminism, it's not a woman's cause. Everyone needs to make this work, right? Just for women, when they were looking for the opportunity to vote, women couldn't do that. They didn't have the power to allow that to happen. Men had to move things forward and support that and advocate for that to change. So it's going to be people that have the opportunity of power and privilege to understand and have that self-reflective moment to cause the change to occur. And once we start reflecting and have that gooey center, honest to goodness reflection, is when we're going to actually see the connection between the story and the person and of what the change needs to be. And so I think
that you think we can help people that, because you bring up a magnificent point that I want to just pause right there. How do we help people who have had little to zero experience? And I really want to also get Maisy's perspective in her role at the Hmong, Wisconsin Chamber. How do we help people understand who had very little or zero experience with people who do not look like them to understand? How do we start having that conversation, or how do we start helping people understand differences and embracing differences outside of what they've seen on television?
Yeah, I mean, start small. I mean, you can't all of a sudden, go into the deep and the heavy, right? Start small. Like, you like tacos? I mean, not to sound cheesy, but sometimes you need to start easy and stuff that they're reflective and then can connect with, right? It's not that every Hispanic person eats a taco, right? But it's a way to start the conversation, right? It's a matter of how I choose to show up as a half Peruvian, half Polish German woman, right? And so it's, how do you see me? How do we have a conversation of why you see me that way? And it's a matter, again, of showing up with some vulnerability and not trying to save someone, but to serve them and helping them to understand it and to bridge that gap, right? If you are in a sense of being able to adapt your way and bridge through differences, and they're maybe in a state of denial, how can we bring them over to at least, hey, see, there are differences that we can appreciate and how they can be much more of a robust and colorful experience beyond that's over there and it's not part of my existence, right? But how can we start to envelop different ways of thinking, not again as in a defense mechanism coming at someone, but trying to meet them through an open conversation of vulnerability and accessibility. And you have to sometimes lead through that yourself to allow them to receive it first versus them being on the defensive. So sometimes it's just taking small steps and helping them through that, through different images, and being kind of that co-partner to help them with that.
Take the small steps. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. I love it. Maisy, your perspectives on bridging the gaps and helping people outside of what we identify in traditionally marginalized groups understand the importance of what we're doing.
As I've gotten older, through experience, through the years, what I've realized is I have to think about what the what is the outcome I want to see. And, the outcome is that I hope that there'll be more understanding, that there'll be more connections made. And I found over the years that just oftentimes just hitting someone over the head or, is not going to get them to listen. It might make me feel better in the moment, but it won't last very long, right? There won't be a long lasting impression. So I love, again, what Samantha said there, it has to be a willingness to open to discussion and to talk, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're always going to have to be polite or in agreement with one another, but just having that willingness to talk and to listen and to perhaps to challenge, but also to say, hey, I hear you, but I also need you to listen to what I'm sharing here, and I'm going to try to put myself in your shoes just as I hope that you can do the same for me. And that with each conversation or with time, that connection, that bridge, that trust is there. And like I said, again, at the end of the day, it's about that end outcome that I'm trying to achieve for everyone.
This is so life-changing. I don't know about y'all. If y'all are not texting y'all's friends and associates to tell them to get into this room to get their life changed for the better, I don't know what else I can say. Because one of the things that you shared, which is so powerful, is willingness. And willingness not to be changed per se, but willingness to listen. I have made, Maisie, a personal commitment to be a better listener, because as someone who is a professional speaker, I had to take a step back as well. And when I say listen, I mean listen to my friends who identify as white, listen to my friends who identify as queer, listen to my friends who identify as Asian American, because quite frankly, based on the events that have happened over the past week, I know there's been several conversations regarding how can we start to cultivate more meaningful relationships with people who do not look like us, who traditionally we've seen in a certain way. I'll be candid. And then I want to ask Isioma for your thoughts. You know, in terms of the images of Black women, the images of Asian Americans in this country, the images of members of the LGBTQIA+ community, the images of people who identify in the Hispanic or Latinx community. Images have programmed us to not have that willingness. And so I'm so glad that you called that out, because again, it's not about being right or wrong. It's having the willingness to listen, to understand, and learn perspective. So thank you for that. Isioma, same question. What are your thoughts and perspectives?
Absolutely. I think first we have to start with a certain level of rapport, right? You know, to have these sort of progressive conversations where we make all of us better and our world and our communities better, you have to build a certain level of rapport. People need to have trust and, of course, be completely authentic. You know, Denise, you mentioned when you initially stated this question that so many women have been progressing in society and shattering ceilings. And the reality of it, if I can be completely candid, is that so many pivotal movements in the past year have been mobilized, amplified, and successful because of women of color. And it's because we do what is so innate to us. We do the work and we make ish happen. That's just what we do. And so I would charge everyone. The reality is you need to listen to women of color within your organization. We see what it's like to be the most relegated, the most downtrodden, the most overworked and underpaid. And so listen to them. Listen to what we have to say. We will take you where you need to go. And my hope is that we see more men stand in solidarity and that we see more white women stand in solidarity with women of color. Because if we do that, the possibilities are endless.
Woo! Tanya, I know you're going to say again, I got to follow that. But I already know you're going to drop some additional nuggets. So to repeat the question for those that may just be joining us, we are having a very incredible discussion around how do we bridge the gaps, especially as it relates to perception and understanding and embracing people's differences. Tanya, your thoughts?
Yeah, to Isioma's point, you know, we white women do have a responsibility, and I. Since I've been in this role for the last few years, and listening is somebody put in the chat about listening being the beginning of healing. I've really been listening to staff of color, and I've most recently held exclusively staff of color listening sessions with me, and what a gift! Like really, what a gift! And we've been. Listening, we've been trusting, moving some policies forward, which are important. What is more important for us, we believe, is to really undo the systemic racism that's in our organization, to be honest about it, to be candid about it. And you know, we don't even know what we don't know yet. But we've been working on our DEI work proper, you know, for a number of years. And now we're at the point of really saying, look, we've got to undo systemic racism and we have to work in an anti-racist way if we're really going to be an inclusive space for everybody, whether it's staff or patients or the community, to have a good and positive experience where people can show up and be their absolutely authentic selves in whatever space that they're in. So that is our commitment. That is my commitment to moving this forward, so that we also see many more women who are leaders of color in our organization as well.
Tanya, what I love the most about everything that you said in particular is that, and I challenge other organizations, whether they're for-profit or nonprofit, to adopt your practice, because the reality is that many companies, many employers have policies that were written 60, 70 years ago that are still acting policies that do not support anti-racism, anti-discrimination, anti-homophobism, whatever isms. And so I love the fact that I would encourage each of you that are listening, as you are considering organizations to partner with, to support, to attend their events, make sure that they have those types of guiding principles and policies, such as Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin, because that's where it starts. You can have all the listening sessions in the world, but if your employer does not have those policies that support what is demonstrated in terms of anti-racism, it means absolutely nothing. So Tanya, thank you so much for sharing that type of effective leadership and responsibility and willingness to administer policies that are not just talking the talk, but walking the walk as well. Thank you so much. Yes, Tanya.
I just really want to quickly and I think it's important for people to own when they have a ways to go. So we still have a ways to go. So I think it's really important to say that too.
It's not a sprint. This is a marathon. There is no finish line. This work is going to be continuous. So thank you again for that, Tanya. Love it, love it, love it. Y'all will be getting a donation from me in 2021. Awesome. All right. So I just want to give a shout out to some of our amazing audience members. Let's see. Renell Washington, my brother from another mother, he says, I love the tone of this conversation and the intentional responses on sharing each leader's perspective. Linda Neff showing ECOMA some love. Thank you for your wise words, hugs, and kisses. Rashad Howard gave us the power fist emoji. Love that. Sherry Hansen, the moment people are heard, they begin to heal. Very, very powerful. Now, I want to change the trajectory of the conversation, because I want folks in here to also, as we talk about the issues at hand, also talk about winning. We want to win in life. We only get one life. So let's talk about how each of you in your journey, in your pathway of leadership and success have won. So as we celebrate Women's History Month, please share with us some of the ways that you are making history. And I'm going to start with you, Maisie, and then we'll go to Samantha and go around. How are you being a women history maker?
Again, just
Toot your horn,
being,
ladies. Toot your horn. Men do a great job at it. Trust me. They love tooting their horn. Toot your horn, Maisie.
Just doing me and following what I feel feels right. I don't feel pressured anymore, especially now, to have to follow one path and to approach something in one way. And if it doesn't make sense to someone in terms of, who I am and what I'm trying to accomplish and the way I approach something, then, I don't let that get to me. I just keep moving forward and focused on where I'm heading. And I think that that's so key. When someone tells me, well, you've got X, Y, and Z shoes to fill, I just say, well, it's a good thing I brought my own pair of shoes. It's a good thing, because we're all different individuals and we're all going to approach things differently. And up until this point, a little bit of that and a little bit of faith and in a higher power, and voila. And I think that has certainly contributed to the daily, sometimes small success, seemingly small successes that lead to big things.
Celebrate the small wins. I love it. I love it, Maisie. Samantha, how are you making history?
I would say it's going to be a journey, right? But it's continually learning how to use my voice and using my voice for positive work, right? So it's, if there's one way of how it's been done, bringing a fresh, bold, new perspective, like, let's think about this differently. It's about learning how to listen and let the crickets and have some of that discomfort sit in, right? And like letting people just sit with it. It's knowing when and how to do that effectively. It's being persistent and tenacious and having that grit of when you get a no, the window's going to open next time, right? It's knowing to have that faith that it's not always going to plan and pay out how you think it's going to be, but it's getting you somewhere closer to where you want to be. So it's, again, being agile and understanding that it's not always going to be a path that you thought it was going to be, but enjoying it along the way and sharing in those moments and being present. So I would say those are kind of the highlights of what I find to do.
Be present, be agile. I love it. Especially be present. Put the phone down. Be present. I love it. Tanya, how are you making history? I mean, you've already shared with us, the policy amendments, that right there is making history for the next successors of Planned Parenthood. How are you making history?
Well, I'm really excited about this upcoming year, really focusing on reimagining what's possible, both for myself and for, the organization, colleagues, patients, communities. We are, I say every day, because I've been at Planned Parenthood way longer than I thought I was going to be. I'm not going to age myself, but I started working here at 13. I've been here for a while. And it is such a gift, really, to work with this group of people that have such a level of commitment to a mission, who are selfless, who put themselves on the line every day to do this work. And so we're at a place where we can reimagine what's possible. And so I'm excited to see what we can tackle as a team, and for myself, and for how we can be there for communities in a very different way. So stay tuned. I'm excited about that. And for me personally, I'm just excited to move forward. And, I've learned so many lessons as a leader in this last year. I always say, like, if I had time to sit down and actually write down everything I've learned, it's been a lot. It's been such a unique opportunity. And I think one of the things that I've learned, and that I don't know if this is making history or not, but I do surround myself with incredible friends and family, and they are the truth talkers to me. And so I think that they will tell me the truth if I am or if I'm not making history, or if I'm just a legend in my own mind. So looking forward to time with them in the upcoming year.
So by show of hands, how many of you all would love to read Tanya's top 10 lessons learned in 2020? Just by show of hands. I would buy that book in a minute. So Tanya, the people have spoken. It's unanimous. We can't wait for you to write that down and publish it. Yes. I love it. Thank you so much. Isioma, walking, living, breathing, woman of history. What are you doing to make history?
I would say I dare to exist. And not only do I dare to exist, I thrive. I've said it before. I'll say it until I'm blue in the face. I'm a millennial, I'm an immigrant, I'm Black, I'm a woman, and I am everything this country, this society, our world tells me I cannot be, and I do it very well. And so there's just power in my existence, and I live and walk boldly in my intersectionality now more than ever. In my communities, I serve in a variety of leadership capacities where I can help guide progress and help guide conversations. So whether it's Tempo Milwaukee and EWL, or the Association of Corporate Counsel Wisconsin, from the YWCA YWCA to the Greater Milwaukee Foundation, I bring all of who I am to each of those capacities. And then I think, I have my 9 to 5, but I also have a 5 to 9, which allows me to continue to walk in my purpose and alleviate the burdens of these sort of groups I represent in intersectionality for the next generation, and making sure that I'm doing my part and serving my purpose on this world. And so that's how I say I'm making history.
Oh my goodness. And that you are, what I love about each of you, in your own dynamic way, you embrace not only your identity, but you do it with such elegance and confidence. And one of the things that I learned from a very, very dear friend, mentor, leader, Pastor Pamela Hines of Christian Faith Fellowship Church here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And she talks about, women, you do not have to compromise your femininity to be an impactful leader. And I love that each of you as women embrace who you are. Let people know this is who I am. This is my identity. And I can still kick what and take names. And I think that's very inspirational. And so I appreciate, oh, I'm sorry. Somebody said the audience wants to know your answer to this question. Oh my goodness. Thank you. You are fantastic. How am I making history? Linda, I am the effective communication coach. And every day when I wake up in the morning, I make sure that I am transforming emerging and existing professionals into extraordinary leaders by mastering the art of effective communication. That is how I make history every day, all day. And thank you so much for that question. Also got to give a quick shout out before we close to Eric Kennedy. I can't see it, but he sent us a really, really nice message in terms of each of you. So shout out to my brother, Eric Kennedy. Now, in closing, this is the last question. And I want each of you, first thing that comes to your mind, and we got to wrap up, so about 30 seconds or less. As we celebrate Women's History Month, and as we are turning up our mic and amplifying our stories, what will the next 5 years look like for women from your lens? We're going to start with you, Maisie.
"30 seconds ticking down." I think we're going to be fearless, continue to be fearless and be focused. And I think that that's going to take us very far, even farther than obviously than we are now. And I think that we continue to do that by pulling each other up and encouraging one another and letting each other know that we're heading in the right direction. And instead of pushing each other down, we lift each other up. And by doing that, I think we're going to be moving in leaps and bounds in 5 years and then some.
Lift each other up. I love that. That's a call to action. That's a great way to close. What are you doing today, tomorrow, and beyond to make sure that you are lifting someone or a group of people up? I love it. Samantha.
Yes. Yeah, I was going to say something very similar. So empowered women empower women, right? So don't, bring someone down to make yourself look better. Don't dim your light to make someone look brighter, but bring someone along with you. Keep pushing forward, and let's live in our boldness. Let's live in our drive and love who we are and help shine our light on other people. Let them do the same thing. So let's all appreciate our uniqueness, our eccentricities, our peccadillos, all that goodness. But let's love it. Let's embrace it, and let's keep pushing forward together.
I love it. Let's push forward together, not divided, together as women. I love it. Love it. Love it. Isioma.
Absolutely. I would say, it's only up from here, right? Like Samantha said, continuing to stand in solidarity, confidently, boldly, and again, recognizing the strength in our solidarity and sort of getting away from the idea of the glass ceiling altogether, not only starting to break it, but just leave that in the past. And we define our own ceilings. In fact, we define our own floors. There is no ceiling. And so just standing in our solidarity and moving forward.
Love it. Another, move forward, stand in solidarity. Tanya.
I 100% agree. And, I think, cliche as it might be, when we all do better, we all do better. And I look forward to more women being in power in all the different ways and all the different meanings of power. And I think that our communities, our world is going to be better for it.
Absolutely. Ladies, thank you so much for making the time out of your incredibly eventful schedules, or as the Queen says, schedules, I appreciate your time, your wisdom. There's so much love that you're receiving in the chat box. So please take a look if you get a moment. It has been my absolute pleasure to moderate this so very insightful conversation. Cannot thank you enough on behalf of Milwaukee Film and Black Lens. Keep being great leaders. We need you. Keep influencing, keep inspiring, keep doing what you do. And next year, let's make sure that we have 20 women on this panel that are making history in the state of Wisconsin, in this world. Y'all have a great rest of the week. Continue to make history and go be great. Thank you so much.
This is our first robust month-long celebration of Women's History Month. We have over 30 films, feature films and short films, returning favorites and brand new films, and 6 events featuring local and national luminaries, women that are leading the charge in activism, business, empowerment, arts, and culture. Viewers can access the Women's History Month programming through our app, which is available on a number of different platforms that you can watch on your TV, on your computer, on your tablet. What this is a celebration of women in all of their diversity, looking at their successes, their victories, but also focusing on the work that still needs to be done, the challenges that are facing women today.